Prepare to have your mind blown. Jon Stewart couldn't believe the mess of bureaucratic red tape that makes D.O.G.E necessary when Ezra Klein explained what happened to the rural broadband connection project launched by Biden nearly 4 years ago for $42 billion. But that's just the start of it, so take a look at this incredible exchange before I show you the real picture.
This process we are talking about, which currently all 56, 3 years later, all 56 applicants had passed through at least step 5. It took more than 3 years. So it's a long time. States must submit a 5-year action plan. So the states kind of go back and they kind of think about how they're going to do this. And they don't just say, okay, thank you for the money. We're going to spend it. And you can see how it worked out later. We're like, here's our 5-year action plan. Then the FCC must publish the broadband data maps before NTIA allocates funds. So this one is, I think, a little funny at least. So these maps, right? This is supposed to show you where you don't have enough broadband. But it then says in parentheses, and states needed opportunities to challenge map for accuracy. So having done the NOFO, the letters of intent, the request for planning grants, then the review, approval, and awarding of the planning grants, then the 5-year action plans. In between that, the federal government has to put forward a map saying where it thinks we need rural broadband subsidies. And then, of course, the states need an opportunity to challenge the map for accuracy. And you can imagine this doesn't all happen in like a day. Okay. So then the NTIA, step 7, has to use the FCC maps to make allocation decisions. Then, having already done their letter of intent, their request for planning grants, it's hard even to talk about this, man.
Ezra, I just want to say, if you were going to design a machine that would keep people from getting broadband.
Yes.
If you were to design a machine it's almost as though they have designed this to make sure that people in rural areas by the time this is around, Musk will already have the chips in our brains. We won't even need it.
The BEAD program, as it's named, has to be the most glaring failure of the Biden administration over the last 4 years. And it's not just the obvious fact that it's not a single home that has been connected to high-speed broadband internet so far. It's that all of those $42 billion are scattered and stuck somewhere along the chain of processes, feeding and reinforcing a bureaucracy that's incentivized to drag every layer of the process as much as it can. That's the core of the debate and the entire reason that an agency like D.O.G.E is so critical. By the way, we're the antidote to the mainstream media spin, so please make sure to subscribe to Millionaire Mentor to never miss out. Now, while the Trump administration as well, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, have vowed to speed up the entire process, there's another staggering cost that's not immediately visible.
By the way, going to make it impossible for anyone other than larger corporations to comply, because the expense that it would take for smaller, more agile, more local businesses, they would not have the manpower, the financial resources. You are excluding an enormous amount of the American economy in terms of building things by laying on compliance costs that would drive most companies into the ground.
Very good, John. But why not take that a step further? It's not just the compliance costs, because he conveniently leaves out 2 important aspects for such staggering yet predictable failures of the bureaucracy. Number 1, that's a lot of these proposals and drafts trying to do a dozen different things at the same time, with diversity and representation requirements, ESG environmental regulations, and a whole bunch of other hoops to jump through before the real work even begins. Number 2, it's the bureaucrats and government officials known that their job security survives on paperwork, studies, reviews, committees, and more middlemen to justify the expansion of their budgets and workforce. There's an idea in economics called the sunk cost fallacy, which, simply put, means that more time and money has been sunk into a project, the more you feel the burden of actually finishing it, leading to your sinking more time and money on it, and so on. That's a downward spiral in most public projects that only an outside force can stop, such as an agency like D.O.G.E, meant to go in and cut down regulations, costs, and delays. Honestly, the BEAD program has to be an egregious example of that, and it should enrage every single hardworking American taxpayer for it.
By the end of 2024, 3 have gotten to the end of the process. They were trying.
Three of these 56.
Yes.
End of the process, meaning they've actioned it, they've built it, or they've gotten
Oh no, of course not. I didn't mean they built it, John.
Oh.
Sorry, I confused you.
Oh, dear
They just
God.
got to the point where, in theory, they could get the money to build
They
it.
had been approved for the money.
Yes. Yes, basically.
I want to make sure that everybody understands each one of these steps. I'm sure, and pardon me if I'm being presumptive here or presumptuous. Each one of these steps has an amount of time
Yes.
that they write into. So in other words, it's a 90-day waiting period for these challenges. It's a 120-day review process. Like there's already, without anybody even submitting anything, that they could have seen on a macro level, 2.5 years of nothingness built into the plan.
Yes. I mean, I can't say because I haven't looked at every regulation here, but yes.
I feel confident.
Yes.
I
you
feel
are
confident knowing what the public comment times are. Like you always have 90 days, 120 days. They have a 30-day review process. They have an 800-day, it's all of this.
Well, judging from the fact that it's been nearly 4 years, I'm not surprised. As Elon Musk said just this past month, regulations should be default gone, and then every single one of them has to justify their existence in order to stay. What you're seeing right now is decades of regulation piling onto an untangled mess that no one can navigate, and that's perhaps the difference between the incentive structures for public-funded projects versus private enterprise. I mean, just contrast the BEAD project with something like Starlink that connected 27,000 affectees to the internet in a single day. And I think this is a fact that at least the center left is starting to wake up to, because even Bill Maher last week ripped into California and Governor Gavin Newsom for the amount of regulations and checks he had to go through just to install a new roof over his own home.
California is projected to lose 3 seats, New York 2, also going to lose a seat, Minnesota, Oregon, Rhode Island, Illinois, all blue states. Who's getting these? Texas, Florida, Idaho, and Utah. I mean, this looks like game over, and the reason why people are voting with their feet is a lot of what your book is about.
Yeah,
taxes and regulation. I certainly have been screaming about it forever. I did 3 years with a sign here that said, how long is it going to take me to get my solar hooked up? 3 years. Talking about it on television in this state. You couldn't do it. This state has almost 400,000 regulations. I just put in a new roof because the fire, I thought, let's get a roof that's not going to burn up. 2 inspections. Why are you inspecting my roof? It's my roof. If it falls on me, that's my problem. And we're taxed more than any other state. People are leaving these kind of states for places where they're not, they feel the heavy breath of government on them. It's not that hard.
That's at least a start, but it's still regrettable that people like Bill Maher would have to be personally inconvenienced just to get a taste of the red tape that hinders this entire bloated government. Now, of course, while it's too early to tell what the impact of DOGE is going to be, perhaps the first step is building some bipartisan consensus that the size of regulations and government bureaucracy cannot just keep expanding indefinitely, especially with over $35 trillion in national debt. But tell me in the comments if you see that happening anytime soon, because it's just feeling like the actual Democratic Party, that his power is only moving in the opposite direction to where it should be.